Anybody feel the earthquake yesterday?
I heard about it because I'm in San Carlos. I'm far away from like San Jose. So Rigo, I think
I was on a video call with Matt, who lives like at the epicenter, and I see his camera moving. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I think we're having an earthquake." and it was one of those like, "Is it getting worse? Should I get up? Is it cool?" And it actually went on for quite a while.
Wow.
And then his camera stopped, and then I waited, and I'm 50 miles away, and all of a sudden my camera started to move. I'm like, "There it is."
Yeah, same thing. I was on a call and same thing. My ops manager, I could see her doing this. Trying to decide, do I get up? Do I run? Do I stay still?
Because you don't know if it's just getting started or if this is as bad as it's going to get, right? So you're just like, I always tell people I don't get out of bed for anything less than a 5.0. That was a 5.0.
I live in Granite Bay, so we didn't. We're sitting on granite. We didn't feel anything. So, hey Rigo, do you know Paul Melman?
I do. I know Paul well. Actually, him and I were on the same team here about 2 years ago.
Paul and I go back. I've known Paul 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Paul used to live in San Carlos, where I used to live. But yeah, I've known Paul for a long time. We worked together. We worked together at I wish we worked together at Scopus Technology.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that. Emeryville? Scopus was in
Emeryville, yeah. At the Watergate Towers.
Yeah.
Paul's awesome. It actually gives me a good reason to circle back and connect with him. I'll let him know.
Yeah, he's Paul's a good guy.
So Rigo, I heard Walrito's pool got a crack or something or from the earthquake.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. I know he's been dealing with a lot of contractor issues. So one of the guys on my team just bought a house, and man, I told him that's lipstick on a pig. You better make sure that you start pulling back walls and ceilings, and he's just finding one issue after the other.
Hey, that's what you get when you buy a house.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we bought a place up here in Granite Bay last year, and the day before Thanksgiving, when I had a house full of people, my sewage decided to back up. And so I had to, and there was no clean out close to the house, which we discovered wasn't disclosed in any of the documents. And I had to pay $5,000 for Rooter Hero to come out and install a clean out valve that day. That was awesome.
Oh man.
Yeah. Everyone has those stories, one or the other way. But
the joy of home ownership.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I bought my house, my manager at the time, he welcomed me to indentured servitude.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, we've been outside of that. We've been pretty fortunate. We were able to buy this place, and it was in move-in condition for the most part. We haven't. That was the biggest issue that we've had to deal with so far. So, the previous owners took really good care of this place.
Nice.
Lucky.
Yeah, which is important. Where are you, Rigo?
I'm in Newark here in the East.
Okay.
Yeah. But I grew up in San Mateo, Redwood City area until I moved here to which crossing that bridge feels like you're driving into another state sometimes.
Yeah.
Whereas Carlos is way out there now. How's that commute for you, Carlos?
About 20 feet.
Yeah, I didn't realize Carlos actually came to see me. I didn't realize he drove from like so far. It's like he came to like San Mateo. So thank you.
I'll be moving back to San Jose at the beginning of the year. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'll wait one more minute and then we'll officially kick off. I think we have like.
For the record, everybody can see us. You guys know that, right?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure you guys.
That's why I'm keeping silent.
Yair's like, I'm not saying nothing.
All right. Maybe we can begin really quickly. I'm Dickie Singh. First of all, thank you for being here. We have not had a customer webinar in a while, so this is a first one. And we have been like kind of super busy with like CAS 2.0, which is, well, I guess now we just released CAS 2.1, which is an automation platform to drive growth and revenue from existing customers without having to kind of scale teams. So today, we have Quezada customer executives, Carlos Quezada, sorry if I mispronounced, from HPE, Rigo Rodriguez from Pure Storage, Yair Bortinger from ControlUp, and Andrew Marks from Success Coaching. All the guys are like really popular and well-known in the industry. So I wanted to say a few things about the companies that they represent, and I will ask them to introduce themselves after. So HPE Enterprise is listed on NYSE Exchange and has annual revenues of $28 billion. And HPE was split from HPE in 2015 and is focused on like servers, storage, networking, containerization, software, and consulting and support. All now sold as a service. And I believe Aruba was HPE's biggest acquisition at $3 billion.
That's correct.
And Pure Storage is also a publicly traded company listed on NYSE, developing and selling all-flash data storage hardware and storage products. It has a market cap of $9 billion. ControlUp transforms how IT manages systems, troubleshoots issues, and delivers a great user experience. It has raised over $140 million, including its most recent Series D. Yeah, I don't know why you negotiated so hard when we signed, but it is based out of Silicon Valley and Israel. And Yair is actually joining us from Israel, and it's 8 p.m. over there, so thank you. Success Coaching, very well known for coaching and educating almost 20,000 customer success managers. That's a huge number. And it teaches CSM's best practices, retention techniques, strategy, and revenue expansion. And there was a question that I just got from one of the audiences. I will queue it up for you later. Like, what are you doing for CS leader training? So you can like talk about that as well. So, okay, now let me pass the mic around to the room and let each of the panelists introduce themselves. Please tell us about yourself. Andrew.
You're
Muted. That's better. There we go. Thank you. Thank you for that. Those introductions. I've been great company with HPE Pure Storage and ControlUp here. As a matter of fact, HPE, we have students from both HPE and HPE on our platform. But I've spent my entire career helping customers get value from their investments. My first job out of college was working for Apple Computer in their customer support center. And my focus and ethos has always been about helping customers get a return on their investment. I've held a number of operational executive roles in post-sales for various companies, both on-prem and in the cloud. I've got more than 20 years of experience post-sales and have taken that experience along with my partner's experience to build and develop this coaching and training program that we offer through Success Coaching.
Great. Carlos.
How's it going, everybody? Again, like Andrew says, pleasure to be here with everybody. Great company. Great to see everybody. I think last time we saw each other was at Pulse. So Carlos Quezada, head of customer success and digital service strategy for Rigo Networks, as mentioned, Diggy, part of HPE. Been with the company for 5 years. My background has been in predominantly in services and support, as well as big data analytics and machine learning. So my role at the company is really combining both, the customer service experience and tech support experience that I have with automation and big data analytics. So, CAS that app solution fits really well into our architecture.
Thank you, Carlos. Rigo, you're up next.
Yes, thank you, Dickie, for having me, and great company with the panelists here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're signing in from. I'm Rigo Rodriguez. I lead the Global Customer Success Organization here at Pure Storage. Have been here for a little over 3.5 years now. It was actually the first CSM hire to help stand up the as a service for what has historically been known as a hardware service. And the reason I've had that, the good fortune of actually being able to do that is my background over the last 20, 25 years has been pretty evenly split between startups and enterprise companies building out post-sale service and support organizations, primarily in the fintech, security, and now storage space. So privileged to be here and to be with you all.
Thank you, Rigo. Last but not the least, Yair.
Hi guys, it's a pleasure being here with you guys. So I'm Yair. I've been in customer facing for the last 15 years, being various positions and CS leadership and CS innovation in some of the companies that I've been in. I'm very enthusiastic by helping people achieve their goals, if it's companies or individuals, and deliver a great customer experience. My focus is how do customers absorb the engagement in here in ControlUp as well.
Thank you so much, Yair. And I should add that I'm Dickie Singh. I'm the founder and CEO of Cast.app. We are kind of focused on scaling growth and expansion using an automation first and just-in-time approach to drive growth, which is usage, adoption, and retention, and revenue expansion, which is renewals, upsells, and cross-sells, using automation, as I said earlier. And then we can reach both the active users as well as the executives of your customers. So let's begin. The first question I wanted to ask is your organization and your responsibility. So where does your team and you fit in the company? Like, who do you report to and all? Andrew.
So I'm the chief operating officer, also the chief product officer, also whatever other hat that they got to throw on my head to address what needs to get addressed. That's what happens when you're in a lean company. The customer success team though reports up to me. So I have a head of customer success who's responsible for our customer success strategy and execution, and she has roughly one and a half full-time equivalents that report up to her to support our customer base.
Thank you. Carlos, talk about your company, your team. I know lots of changes have happened since you joined, but go ahead.
Yeah. Coming from a startup world for most of my career, I think change is constant, and I think it's helped me adapt well with all the stuff that's going. So, as you mentioned, I'm part of the Aruba Networks business unit inside of HPE, focusing predominantly on networking and software and security, which is called the Edge business unit. I actually work under the services organization, the services umbrella, and recently have been moved to report under the chief operating officer for Aruba. And so my team currently supports really the kind of more of the kind of cutting edge platform, which is Aruba Central. That's a cloud centralized management architecture that leverages a lot of machine learning and AI to do a lot of automation for network management and troubleshooting. Just some context, we currently have, I would say, somewhere around 16,000 customers globally, portfolio a little bit over $300 billion. We created customer success about 4 or 5 years ago, started with the digital first approach. Right now we have a couple of different engagement models. We have what I call monetized customer success as part of advanced service programs. We also have the swarm model CSM, which goes and engages customers throughout the life cycle opportunistically, and then our digital first motion. So 15,000 customers and about 8 customer success managers managing those accounts globally.
Do you want to expand on the swarm model? Because I've heard it before, but I think our audience would really benefit from that as well.
Yeah, so traditionally in a end-to-end lifecycle management model, you would have a customer success manager manage a portfolio of customers, either by number of accounts, by segment, or even dollar value. And so when we first started from a customer success perspective, there was no organizational that there was no CS team here before. And so we really had to start very grassroots. And so we had to go digital first. We didn't have the money to go and hire a bunch of CSMs. And we've kind of kept it that way. And so our model is more around, if we can go in and proactively manage customers throughout the life cycle and be able to understand if they're on track, off track, or at risk, leveraging those indicators to understand if a customer needs help. Then we go and we leverage automation to proactively engage with customers digitally and let them know what we need them to do or kind of where they stand compared to their peers. But in every one of our digital engagement reach outs, which right now is predominantly through email and now through CAS, we include links to be able to schedule a call with a CSM. And so Calendly allows us to do some resource management in the background. So rather than having a CSM dedicated to an account, we have a pool of CSMs available to respond to Calendly inquiries, right? And so that's how we do it. So ultimately, we have CSMs split their time between managing a number of accounts that we assign, but then also predominantly responding to health score changes and Calendly requests.
Yeah, just so that you know, like whatever you have taught me, I plagiarize it completely, and well, that's what we're doing for HP. So, all right, yeah. Not to be in alphabetical order, let's Yair, do you want to tell us where your company, where you fit in and your team fits in?
So the CS organization is under the COO. In my team, I'm the customer success operations, leading the customer success operations. And we use a digital touch engagement that has in the customer lifecycle and indicators about usage and other, there are points where we get in, like Carlos said, there is some touch there. It's not full digital, but the main engagement is digital. We service 1,200 customers, and we are a team of 3. From onboarding throughout the life cycle, we are in charge of usage adoption, rollout, training, and we push people for training and not. So we have some indicators where we go in, and of course, in any point in time, customers have the calendar link that they can actually book a meeting with us. So we make ourselves available for them, but we go digital first.
Yeah, and then ControlUp has an amazing program, which is what we call like dripless campaigns, not having to worry too much about because customer maps, people don't follow a customer map, right? So that's an amazing program. We'll get into that in a second, but Rigo.
Yes, absolutely. So the customer success organization is one of the pillars of customer experience. I report into our chief customer officer, who is a longtime Silicon Valley executive, coming from Cisco, Joe Pinto. Our charter really is focused primarily right now on onboarding and adoption for the as a service program offering of Pure Storage. As I mentioned, we are a legacy hardware company where about 3.5, 4 years ago, we offered or stood up an as a service offering, leveraging our core products and essentially put the model on its head. So I was brought in to really help build the framework and foundation on how do we take this legacy hardware business and move it towards a subscription as a service model. And that has been my focus. Over the last couple of years, we've acquired another company that is a true SaaS company, Portworx, is focused on Kubernetes and containers. So I've inherited that account team. And across both teams, we have about 18 customer success managers managing about 700 customers. ARR is over 100 million in ARR, and we are continuing to grow at triple-digit growth for that as a service business. So the focus has really been there, and that has been my team's charter, as well as how do we take the framework and structure and the methodology of customer success, where we get involved in the pre-sales acquisition phase with customer success plans, things of that nature, and incorporate them into the legacy hardware business to build out a more robust customer lifecycle.
Thank you. And I must add that Rigo's team is very technical. I mean, there's a very technical group of like CSMs. They're, even writing SQL queries and all, like Wordito, doesn't matter to them. Like they're like very advanced. And that's, so I'm keeping score. So 3 COOs or reporting into CEOs and like 1 CCO, right? I was in a conference just 2 weeks ago, and I was told that customers during an escalation kind of love talking to the CCO, but not the CRO or the COO. So it's kind of understanding. Again, we will take a few questions at the end. We already received a whole bunch of questions from the audience, but if you want to send those questions over in our Q&A section, John will help us take those. So I actually wanted to shift to kind of talking about your product stack. I already know quite a bit about your product stack and why you chose what you have, but what is your business product stack? And then as it relates to serving your existing customers? So I'm not talking about like everyone has Salesforce or spends a lot of money on like sales tools. So what products and services does your team use? I already know that success coaching does not have a CS platform, right? So again, let's start with Rigo this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very early on in the development of our CS platform, currently leveraging Churn Zero, more recently started leveraging Cast, also heavy users of Salesforce, as well as some other tools that we are considering adding to our tech stack. The approach at the moment is really how do we build a rich and robust tech stack to offer more digital delivery, more digital capabilities, more automation. And that doesn't necessarily mean for the purposes of minimizing resources. That is for the purpose of continuing to drive a high value, high NPS service engagement for all customers, regardless of segment, regardless of revenue contribution. So those are some of the tools that we're currently looking at. I mean, there are a number of others that we are evaluating at the moment to really put forward, again, a comprehensive, cohesive strategy around our digital touch and how that factors into our customer engagement.
Sounds great. Yes, our product works with every CRM and every CS tool, so that's good to hear. Yair, do you want to talk about your stack?
So for, let's say, for my team and engagement, we have basically two teams. The high touch segment, with they have a portfolio with a dedicated CSM. For that, we use actually it started like in a startup, like a personal endeavor of one of the first people that start FileMaker. And so we actually have our own CS management tool, like a FileMaker. And every time we like the customization, every time we add a feature or product and we want to see the adoption of that, we have another file or another field, and we found it very useful for us at this moment. But for the long tail, we are actually using two technologies. So basically we use Ever After, which is a platform for engaging with customer, or customer engagement platform that has the ability to create for each customer his own personal hub. So based on our Salesforce, we use also Salesforce. Based on Salesforce, I created like a dedicated object, which I call it like a switchboard, where a sequence of those fields that are updated every day according to usage, license, and the life cycle. It controls the content that they have on their own hub. So, and we use that during the onboarding of each and new product that we have, according to each and new customer as well, that they have exactly the steps that they need to take. So the challenge of that people needs to log into that hub. It's not there. So we're using actually CastUp in order to have a very minimum, very short casts with a specific call to action. So in CastUp, we explain why they need to take that action. And in the hub, in the personal hub, we say how you make that action. So it's very specific. And once we have indication that they did that, or even before the onboarding, they already configured some of the settings that they need to do, we skip that because they already did that. So the way we use Cast is basically if they did something, don't talk about that. Only the call to action is very specific to the customer and it's very personalized. And we found that this is very effective.
Thank you. It feels like I should have a session with each of you separately about the way you're doing it. So I know Andrew has a lot to say, but let me just bring Carlos in before, and then we will switch to Andrew.
Yeah, I was actually just, I'm glad I went last. I was just kind of noting down all the tools that we use, because As I mentioned, my background is in service and support and big data analytics, and that's kind of the approach that I took. From a CS platform perspective, I actually have three. I use Gainsight, Tatango, and Client Success.
All
Um,
three
all-
together?
Not well, yeah, but
Different business units.
I
Talk
have
about not playing favorites.
right. um it's awesome to talk about that during renewal period, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, but no, so it's basically an outcome of acquisitions, right? And really gives an opportunity to kick the tires and really figure out what's going to work for us longer term. So right now we have all three. From regards to a tech stack, I actually think we have a pretty elaborate tech stack. So we actually implemented Pendo inside of the solution to give us some analytics on what the customers are doing while they're in there. We use support logic to go and give us sentiment analysis as customers are engaging within our support. We also use Redflare that gives us the voice analytics that we need when customers on the phone with support. And then we use Alteryx and Automation Anywhere. So Alteryx to help us really go in and pull a lot of the speed of getting to the data insights. And then we use Automation Anywhere for RPAs, robotic process automations, to automate some of the manual processes that are out there. Even to the point of creating like MBR and QBRs before we had Cast. And then we also use Qualtrics for us to kind of centralize kind of VOC platform. And then we also had kind of built our homegrown, service automation platform, which is really our centralized database of customer data that we can use to really play around with and drive insights. And, for the CS people on the call here, really what this is all the different levers and indicators that you would want to use to go and understand where the customer is along the progression of a life cycle. And are they red, yellow, or green, right? Any of those indicators that you can get that help you understand where the customer is and whether they're on track or off track is important. We're at different levels of maturity with all these tools, but I do think that it's a pretty good start.
Note to self: next time, ask Carlos what products he's not using. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna digitize all that, whatever you said, so that I'll put it on the post so that everyone can take a look at that.
Sure.
Andrew, tools.
So we've developed our skills development platform infrastructure with scale in mind in every aspect. We run an incredibly lean organization. So we OEM an industry standard LMS that we essentially use as a content management backend, but they happen to have one of the best APIs out there that allows us to manage the data from the content. Wrapped around that, we developed a custom user interface, a custom SSO solution for enterprise customers. We integrated a standardized certification testing engine and a credential management solution. So we're using Brillium for certification, and we're using Credly for credential management. We use Zapier to automate workflows, HubSpot for both prospect and customer marketing. We built our own data warehouse that sits on a secure Azure server running SQL Server, and that provides extensive usage and learner progress intelligence. And we use Cast for communicating learner progress and consumption for our enterprise customers on a monthly basis. We've built a custom administration application for provisioning and course entitlement that will soon be exposed to our enterprise customers, allowing them to self-serve and additional access to their teams as they scale without us becoming a bottleneck. And then we interact with our customers via email and intercom in-app using the Front communications platform to manage and distribute all of our communications to team members. And finally, Typeform and Promoter to track customer sat and NPS.
Wow. Look at the list of products. I mean, like, just imagine sitting through every customer's QBR every.
Yeah.
That's why, the C-level execs stop coming for QBRs after the first one, and everyone else like after the first two or three, right? So
yeah, well, we had to. I mean, we had no choice. We once again, we have like 4 full-time people. Right? I mean, we are, and we got nearly 20,000 users.
Yeah.
Right? So we're doing a lot and we're leveraging technology heavily, which is why when you first came to us with the Cast app and you asked me to be an advisor, I got really excited about it and pulled my head of customer success and said, "You got to take a look at this. I think this could be game changing for us."
Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to like talk about your scaled CS programs now, right? So again, I will digitize everything that you have said so that it's easy for people to look at the tools again. So I know that each of you has an industry leading scaled CS program, and that's why like we love working with you, right? So I've heard like Carlos talk about his like widely successful and often imitated, right, in a digital success program. So you have like 3 programs with Cast.app already. I know you expanded fairly quickly, including like ProCare Welcome, ProCare Kickoff, and then the monthly insights review, which is going live very soon. So the last one, and then they're kind of designed to drive onboarding, adoption, and revenue growth. And like Yair is implementing his vision of like automated onboarding and adoption programs that kind of does not rely on rigid drip campaigns that are kind of tied to a customer journey map, because we know customers 60% of the time don't follow a map that you create for them. And Rigo is using automation to share like high-level metrics and lets each persona's customers drill down into details in what they see. And then Andrew, your team is continuously reaching out to customers to inform them of the usage to drive adoption and expansion. So I wanted to like drill down on each of your scaled programs. So starting with Yair, tell us about your just-in-time and onboarding and the nudges that you send to customers to complete, and then you give up after like 2-3 times. Talk us through that.
Okay, so basically what we're doing is we have not so straightforward. It's not completely SaaS in that traditional way. There are some components that you need to install on-prem, the firewall settings, there are some IT elements that you need to prepare, and there are some prerequisites for each and every element that you want to integrate with our platform. And there are various platforms that you can integrate with our platform. So each customer has its own technology stack. Each customer has its own limitation, its own, change cycles internally. So we need to accommodate that. When you have a lot of customers and you have a very lean team, you need to generate like an experience for the customers, because we service IT admins. IT admins, if we just listed a long list of tech stack that we use. Imagine how many tech stack IT admins are responsible on. So we are just another vendor or another technology that they need to adopt. So taking under consideration our champions, which they first need to firefight all the P1, emergency stuff that they need to take care of, and then they have big projects of upgrading systems or migrating from one data center to another. And so I call it the mental bandwidth and the actual time that they can invest in adopting another system is very limited. So the way we build this is, if you have 5 minutes with us, we'll tell you exactly what you need to do. And we combine Ever After as the hub of the how-tos, which is very, like feeding with a spoon. Okay, this is the prerequisites that you need to do to prepare for this specific task. And this is what you need to do with video snippets and very easy to digest. And we use Cast to encourage them, just to explain them like in 20, 30 seconds explanation. This is why you need to take this action. This is the value that you're going to get once you complete this action. And so the combination of why, click here, and then a very short 5 minutes action that they need to take actually allows us to drive the adoption and the rollout of our product just to fit in their time. And of course, they can do more than 5 minutes at a time because they have all their to-do list in the hub. But in order just to, not to be intimidating, okay, now you need to invest a whole day or a full hour, just to take under consideration that maybe they have 5 minutes now, or during that hour that they wanted to spend, they have like a emergency that they need to take care of, they need to stop. What we have is basically, you did that, we call to action for one specific action that you need to take, but you were in the hub and you took like 5 actions. The next day, we update the data, also in cast. So if you have, let's say, 15 actions that you need to take, and you completed 5, and the cost that you got is only on 1 call to action, you won't get the 5 that you already completed. So instead of you need to do this and then you need to do that, we have like, you need to do these 15, and then you need, oh, this is already, you completed that. So that's the way we drive. And we consider, when you move from, let's say, a CSM mentality, which you have like your portfolio of 20, 30, depends on, customers, to service a scale of customers. You change your mentality of thinking of, you have these customers, I call it, we have a bucket. So we are not managing customers, we're managing buckets, different buckets of customers. And our goal is just to drive them from one bucket to another, and hopefully they will get to this golden bucket, which they never stay there because they go over. So for what we are actually creating now is buckets. So we start with 5, and then we increase more and more, and hopefully we'll have like 100 different buckets, and each one will have its own call to action. So that's the mentality, that's experience that we want to provide our customers. A comic with with CastUp, but like a light or semi-comical experience, and a specific call to action that won't be overwhelming for them to complete.
Yes, and that and you're also using Oliver, which is, or we have Oliver 3.0, like the person that's behind on your right.
Yeah, well, that's one. Yeah, so that's our
animated cast, very similar to Steve 2.0 for Carlos. So let's switch over to Carlos as well. Tell us about your scale program, Carlos.
Yeah, so just some context. We started with our digital first approach from the very beginning. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's not stale. So we're always looking at ways to kind of enhance what we're doing from a digital perspective. And so, we obviously started with email automation, which was, very rudimentary. Everybody was getting kind of the same message at that period of time. Then obviously with advancements in the data and advancements in some of the tools we were using, we were able to start moving to more customized engagements, which I would call more contextual and timely messaging, right? So now we're getting messages to customers with the customer's name, and also specifically to where they were in their journey, right? So you're in onboarding, and you're onboarding red, or you're onboarding yellow, right? And then we've been evolving that to not only are you onboarding red, yellow, or green, but also here's how you're doing from a consumption perspective. Somebody's trying to bring it in telemetry. So the data has been getting richer, and we've been evolving our engagement, but it's still been purely email, right? And so the introduction of CAST really helps us change that, right? We now can go and start doing things through text message and links and things like that. And it's more of an on-demand thing. And so, I actually feel like the use cases for CAST for us are pretty limitless. We're starting with an advanced service program where we have some commitments to do quarterly deliverables and monthly deliverables. All those are actually going to be delivered through CAST, which really goes and helps us from a margin profile perspective, because we can do a one-to-many approach and really deliver our commitments to customers. Similar to Yair, we also very early on personified our digital engagements. We have this virtual CSM named Steve, who's the one who shows up in all of our engagements. And even Steve's been evolving, and we're actually evolving Steve also to consider some of the DEI pieces. So we'll actually go in and be including additional characters that as part of that as well. What I would say is, as we look at evolving what we're doing, one is delivering, CAST as part of the commitments to these to these advanced service programs. But when we take a look at, our evolution as a CS organization and how we're also transcending that famous belly of the fish, right? And going through this layer transformation, really figuring out how we bring the rest of the business along with us, right? And so we started with digital because we had to, but now that people and the company are starting to really comprehend how customer success works and the value that it brings through this transformation, we've established partner programs as well. So we're also now, building out, partner success motions as well. So there's an opportunity there. But as I take a look at FY23 and kind of what we're going to focus on, we recognize that we can't go after every segment in our install base. And so, and Dickie, this is kind of news for you, but one of the things that I'd like to look at in FY23 is using Cast App internally, which means that instead of sending a MBR to a customer, why not send it to a sales segment leader so that sales segment leader knows how their patch is doing with regards to the install base, right? One of the things that we try to drive is accelerate the time for subscription activation. And there should be no reason why customers go 3 months without activating their subscription. If the salesperson sold it, they should make sure the customer is activating it, right? And so giving them performance metrics on how their team is doing and see if there's any themes around specific regions that maybe are better or worse than others, I think is super impactful. And it takes the burden off of the CSM to do it, especially because many of the CS leaders on this call probably recognize that sales folks aren't always very open to have CSMs engage into their accounts. And so instead of us trying to break through to do that, why not empower them to go in and do that? And oh, by the way, if you need help, we can help you. We can take this off of you, but let's go and establish a relationship, right? So for me, next year, it's about continuing to evolve our digital engagement. So moving beyond just email, we already started doing webinars. The digitization around Cast.app, both externally, internally, to me, is definitely a game changer.
Yeah, so definitely want to talk about that. But for some of the other customers who are not here, like Route This, and we're also starting to talk to like Autofy. We are doing something similar. Reach out to the customer, and the customer reaches back and like tells the your sales folks or something, hey, I need this information because I got this cast. But yeah, BI as well as CI is like what makes a lot of sense. Andrew, tell us about.
My peers here are just blowing past us. I mean, we're really just getting started with our digital CS program outside of what we've cobbled together with the intercom and the email. We've built some very basic components. Once again, with everything we do with an eye towards scale, but I'd say we're really immature at this point. We recently launched Cast as a solution to push learner progress out to our enterprise customers. But I see a lot of different ways in which we can use the platform. We're going into and I know you've got a question about our leadership track, but we're going into going to be releasing a leadership track. We are getting calls from our existing customers for support as well as partner programs to teach customer success. I could see us going in a direction, especially with the Cast, for those types of programs, so that for example, the partner manager at a particular organization sees, hey, here's the partners that are signing up and they're completing the programs. And we have some of our customers that are going down the channel partner path and are incentivizing channel partners to get certified in customer success. And as a result, they'll get a bigger discount, right? So it plays into their margins. And, so I could see a lot of different ways in which we can use the Cast app. And I realized that for the first time that you demoed the thing to me. I could imagine all the things, but we are very, very immature at this point. And I just see a lot of different ways that we can use this. And we plan on using it, especially as we release a bunch of these new programs next year. We'll start growing our usage of Cast. It's a necessity for us.
Yeah. And then I'll remind myself to talk to you about how Good Time is using some of the the customers using it, like with partners. They share like the NRR numbers in a waterfall chart. I'll tell you about that.
Yeah, awesome.
Rigo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you hit on, we originally came to Cast because we were looking to automate high-level metrics. We have a very, very rich telemetry tool that Pure offers through its customers. So it's called Pure One. And it has an endless number of data points, but it's very static. Basically, customers are required to log in, look at their viewers, which is what we call the different panels in the telemetry tool, and essentially make heads or tails of what they're looking at. So there's no education, no walking them through what that looks like. So that is one of the issues that we were looking to address with Cast App. That plus the fact that we were growing at triple-digit growth for this as a service business. And so we really needed this for standardization, best practices, and scale. I mean, our customer base, just to give you guys an example, over the last couple of years has grown by over 300%, faster than I can hire CSMs. So really the issue that presented itself was, how do we get our customers their QBRs, their monthly service reviews, whatever cadence they want, and ensure that we're providing those timely updates, because a lot of our customers do actually have service SLAs and SLOs that we have to deliver by. And if we miss any of those key data points for providing proactive monitoring their usage, their consumption, then we're on the hook. And that's essentially the position that we found ourselves in, is like, we have to give our customers an update. We have to standardize how we update that content. We have to be able to touch all of our customers, regardless if they're a $10,000 a year customer or a $10 million a year customer. And Cast was the answer for that. How do we standardize in a format that lends them the opportunity to get the updates on demand, how they want them, when they want them, provide the opportunity to do that in a short 3-minute, 2-minute video clip without having to sit on an hour QBR, where most of the time they're probably looking at their phones and answering emails anyway. So this addressed that scale problem. It allows us to standardize how we deliver our what we call pure value reviews. And it allows us to do that for all customers, regardless of customer size or customer segment. There are other use cases, like Carlos mentioned. We are actually looking to extend Cast to offer that as a training and enablement tool for our CSMs, for our customer base, as well as for our internal resources. We're looking at it, how do we actually use Cast to provide the sales teams with updates on their accounts, updates on their patches, updates on certain products. And additionally, we are actually looking at extending our CSM delivery capabilities through partners. And we're looking at Cast at how do we give partners the updates that they need on behalf of Pure to better service their customers, being that they're representing our service engagement. So as Carlos mentioned, these cases are endless. And every time we think we've identified a new opportunity, there's just another 10 behind it that we're looking to really take advantage of.
Yeah. The way what you said initially, like, customers can log into the dashboard and see the data. But that works for active users. When has a C-level exec or VP level exec logged into your product to look at the data? So instead of asking them to come into your product and become monthly active users, put the product to them, and think that works very well. And providing continuous value versus once a quarter is a game changer. So.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. We've had customers flat out tell us, I'm not logging into your portal. So exactly that, Dickie. This allows us to bring them the updates and the confirmation or the content, as well as the information that they need to effectively manage their products and services.
Yeah, so a lot of our customers kind of start with what I call like the tier 3, tier 4, and then very quickly expand to like even the high touch. So I have one follow-up question, maybe for Yair. How should we combine digital touch for high touch customers?
Okay, so in ControlUp we are not there just yet, but with Cast it will be very, very easy, I think. So with Cast and data, you can actually, do a call to action or inform your customers in the right time. And I think, Rigo, you mentioned it. Sometimes it's all about timing. And if you miss the timing, and if you all about, the CSM is handling it by himself, and everybody is having their own priority. But if you do, you infuse high touch with digital touch together and set the expectations with the customer. So it's very important to prepare the customers to say, we have this kind of engagement as well, just to make sure that you are in the program and give you the right nudge when you need it, or the advice, or something that, as you mentioned, people don't have time to have a 1-hour QBR every quarter or even once a year. So if you give them like a 3 minutes, brief on how they're doing and what your recommendation, and you can push it digitally, it can service also strategic accounts and not just the low end. And if you set the expectation, this is not replacing your dedicated CSM. This is just enriching the engagement and the value and the ways that we can drive value on your end, and they prepare to it, and you do it in a lovely way, or I call it a comic way. And I'll give you an example. We send our customers, let's say, a specific call to action. We send 3 casts, 1, 2, 3. If they didn't do that, in the last cast, we actually offer them, listen, we are going to call you if you're not going to do that, or something like that. Just just in a kind of a humoristic kind of way. Listen, Daddy is going to be cross at you if you're not going to do that. Something like that. So if you set the expectation and say, listen, this is like a light kind of engagement, fun kind of engagement, customers are appreciating that. So we are not yet in ControlUp, we are not yet in the strategic segment, but we do see the benefit of cost dripping up, so to speak.
Okay, so we've got like 9 minutes left, and I wanted to cover automated engagement, and then I want to actually go into like several of the questions that we had received over email. So we always get a question like, hey, our data is not ready, right? So and our customers continue. And the fact is, customers' data will never be ready, yet CSMs get to go to various different systems and pull the data together and produce a QBR, right? They, for example, a customer that's just joined, you would say, hey, you bought so many licenses and you're using so many. Or a customer that has been around for a while, they would say, hey, this is how your licenses have grown over time. Do you want to talk to an account manager and all? So in other words, you can use intelligent automation to engage and influence users to like do things. So my question is, what are some of the challenges you face when automating engagement and influencing your customers? What should we take into consideration when designing an automated engagement digital touch? Maybe we'll start with Yair again.
Okay. So data integrity is always a problem. So sometimes you need to fill the dots, and with cost, actually the good thing with cost is that you can actually code things. So with very granular. So if you don't have the specific data, you can set up cost to fill in the gap. So for instance, if you don't have a first name, you say you don't say anything. You can say hi friend or hi something, and so you can fill the gaps when you have missing data with cost using that code. So this is very helpful. And if in some cases, if you don't have the data and in a specific scenario, you just skip that. Waiting for the data to be perfect means that you would never do anything. And sometimes, you will get the false positive, and you call to an action to a customers and you say, hey, I already did that. So, you'll get those reactions for customers, but that's okay. If they say, I already did that, you can learn from that as well. So there are always blind spots in data. There is no 100% data integrity in that sense. And you cannot stop this from doing what you need to do, especially when you want to scale and especially when you want to do automation. It would never be perfect, but if you engage with your customers and you call them and you ask, and you investigate and treat your customers as people and not just as targets or prospects or something like that, you can make this work.
Yeah, I like the last few things that Polly and we were like discussing a few days ago is like, hey, the last time I checked, or yesterday when I checked, you had not done this, right? You preface that and like ask people to do it, right? Because we don't know yet whether they have done this or not. So just like how a CSM would talk, right? That's exactly what the product does. Anyone else want to talk about like the pitfalls of like automation, automated engagement, or?
I think one of the things that you need to remember is, first of all, not all the data that you have is relevant, and you may not have all the data that you need. right? So just because just because you have data doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be helpful. So don't try and force fit it into something. I think our bigger challenge when we were rolling out Cast, well, because we're constantly working on our platform, is that we felt we were missing some pieces, and we had to, not that they weren't there, we just weren't grabbing them and putting them in the data warehouse in the right way.
Nice.
I would say one of the things that we established very quickly is you shouldn't try to boil the ocean, right? I think that for the first, I would say 6 months when we were trying to build this customer success program, we failed to launch many times because we always had the what if condition and what about condition, right? And so we ended up evolving and adopting kind of this agile approach, leveraging MVP, which is we know we have to do all of this, but in the next 90 days, this is all we're going to do. And we just have to be okay with that. Everything else becomes backlog. So I would say that would be one of my key takeaways for anybody doing this is don't worry about solving everything at once. Go and chip away at it little by little. There's always going to be more to do. And then I would say at this level of maturity, once we've evolved and actually are driving digital engagement. So back to an earlier question you had, Dickie, is we actually use our digital engagement as the foundational journey map that we build even the high touch stuff on. So a lot of the digital stuff presents itself upwards in the engagement pyramid. But the challenge is now that we're doing it for everybody, how do we know it works? Right? We can't A/B test against a segment that isn't receiving digital. So what impact is digital having on customers? Like how much faster are they onboarding? Because we don't go in and isolate customers saying these customers are not going to get it, and we're going to prove this is actually doing more, right? And so that's the biggest challenge is how do you go in and actually measure the impact of your digital engagement programs when you have nothing to compare it against to, because now they're all digital, right? So for us, it's a constant evolution of making sure that these digital engagements are adding value. It's almost like, what if we just stopped doing this for 30 days and saw what happened? Would the customers still survive? Well, of course, but what would the numbers look like, right? And so for us, it's some of those things that we're always trying to figure out, like how we can go in and really go in and drive those business outcomes and tie what we're doing to either a reduced customer acquisition cost or reduced churn. Like those are the challenges, especially in the low touch side.
Yeah. And then the one thing I would add to that too is, somebody once told me is do not let perfection be the enemy of progress. And very similar to Carlos, we were trying to boil the ocean. I mean, we knew there was so much that we could do, and we were trying to just bite it all off at once until we were actually forced to a position to step back and say, okay, what is our differentiator as an organization, as a customer success function? And more importantly, what's the benefit and impact to our customers? And what is it that Pure needs that could really add the most value and benefit internally as well as externally to our customers? And for us, that was the adoption, the onboarding phase. So that's really where we kind of scaled it back and started focusing, okay, how do we get the automation and the digital delivery for onboarding right? How do we connect all those dots, make sure that it's adding value? And, the measures that we use for that are time to onboard and time to adopt. So that's really where we started to hone our focus in terms of driving a more agile approach, as Carlo mentioned, to spinning up some of those initiatives and taking on some of those challenges.
This is interesting because, a lot of our customers, they send it to their managers, the manager's manager for feedback, and then they get feedback and they want to incorporate that. But when we put it in front of the customers have different feedback, and sometimes we have to undo what the executives and management has said. So I'd say put it in front of your customer because that's the real audience, right? Early on, get feedback from them instead of like getting feedback from the executives, because all that can be incorporated, but get that to some degree, but get it from the customer kind of thing. So we only have a few minutes. Actually, we can go a little bit over. We can keep going if you're available. But so one of the questions that we are getting a lot of is the difference between the buyer journey, prospect journey, customer journey, and even like the churn journey. If you remember the 7 Pillars book, right? He's talked about it. But let's focus on, when should CS get involved in the buyer journey? Should they get involved? So that's a question we get a lot. I mean, I'm not talking about like a salesperson, like asking like the CS leader, hey, can you step in and like, talk to my prospect to show that how good we are. post sales and all. I'm talking about like with the CSMs get involved or so. Anyone can take this.
So we've, even back before customer success was a thing, in my professional services days, we insisted, especially for more sizable deals, that a services representative was involved in the latter stages of the sales process, to ensure that expectations were being set that can be achieved, that the information captured about the customer and their desired outcomes are transmitted to the team members who are responsible for making the promise into a reality, and as a result, creating a seamless customer experience, transitioning from this sales process where a bunch of people are making promises to the group of people that are completely different group that are responsible for making it a reality. And you need to have a very seamless transfer there, right? This is one of, and we talk about this in our training, one of the key moments of truth in the customer journey, right? Because you want your customer to remain engaged and excited about how the offering is going to make an impact on their business. And if both sides there, the people making the promises and the people responsible for making it a reality, aren't on the same page, then that customer immediately feels some buyer's remorse and is thinking, shit, did I make the right decision here? Because the left hand's not, it doesn't look like the left hand, the right hand are talking.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the answer to this is it depends, because it really comes down to the unit economics of the deal. But when I was at Adobe, for example, there was a process where if a deal was of a certain size and a certain complexity, it had to go to a deal desk, and there was a third-party decision that was made that said, okay, we're going to get somebody involved in the closing cycle here of the sales process. And it typically, in most of the places that I worked, we bring somebody from post-sales customer success in somewhere around the 70 to 75% confidence range.
Mhm.
When we're starting to talk about contracts, we're starting, people feel good that this thing's going to move forward. So that's based on my experience the last
If I can
25
add
years.
if I can add a twist to that, right? Because the context of this conversation is also around digital, right? And what Andrew mentioned is absolutely the key, right? And I kind of spin that, Andrew, as we need to understand the why, right? Why did the customer make this purchase decision? Did they make it based on price, a particular feature, a problem they're trying to solve? The CSM understands that we can deliver on the why. What do we do on the digital side, right? And so historically, I've kind of Trojan horse my way into a lot of the things in most companies. And so when you take a look at the platform that any of us have with regards to the digital engagement, the framework on which we go in and build adoption playbooks and onboarding and all these other things are things that lends itself really well during trials and demos. And so what I always talk about is let's go in and shift left, meaning that let's take and offer the CS automation platform to the pre-sales organization, the inside sales channel team, so that they can also now have visibility of when the customer is logging in during the demo, trial, and all this stuff. Because guess what? When that customer converts, the CS team now has all that data. So from a digital perspective, it's kind of the equivalent, Andrew, is digitally the CS team has been involved in the pre-sale cycle. We know how active they've been on. We know what part of the product they were using. We know who's been their top people logging in. So when that customer converts, guess what? We now know who needs to be on that call and who doesn't. We know what features they were using. We know what features they weren't using. And we can really go and hone in on driving a more customized onboarding experience. So having that platform shift left and allowing us to help them journey map and drive that experience really then introduces you, once you have built that, into the conversations Andrew's talking about, because you've demonstrated value to the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll add to that too. We fit right in the middle in terms of our strategy. We've started to engage our CSMs at that 70% confidence rate pre-sales, where we come in with the customer success plan, and our sales teams and our customers love it because it actually indicates that we are providing them added value and added attention earlier on in the process. And really, a lot of our drivers were to mitigate cases, were to mitigate product issues, were to mitigate any potential issues downstream by making sure that we were aligning the promises of what had been sold to the realities of the engagement and the deliverables and what the support and service delivery resources were expected to support. So we've seen great success with that, and we actually are using those CS plans as benchmarks throughout the lifecycle journey to say, customer, this is what you told us, this is what we're delivering against, and by the way, this is what we could recommend to create a better outcome and experience.
Yeah. So what you're also saying is like from sales to CS is not a handoff. No, it's not a milestone. It's like there is an overlap, right? The account managers need to continue post. Yep, exactly.
It's
Right.
a handshake.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody once said that to me, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. It should be. It's a handshake, right?
Yeah. Okay, we are definitely over time. We can stop or we can keep continuing. We have several questions that people have asked. What do you guys?
I've got time. I can stick around. I've got time.
Same here.
I have 5 minutes.
Okay, let's do that. I know it's like pretty late over there. And this should be a quick answer. Kyle, who does not want his last name to be used, says our product is freemium. So we offer limited free support, but several times support passes free customers to the success team. I think we kind of answered that. What suggestions do you have for customer success for like free users? I think we kind of answered. Carlos answered that, like, start using digital earlier on. Andrew, I thought you had something to also add to that.
Yeah. So I have questions. I mean, I have more questions from this question, right? Why is support passing those customers to the success team? Is it because they believe there's an opportunity to upsell them to a paid version? I mean, it sounds like, Kyle, you need to establish and train on some rules of engagement. Is really what that boils down to, right?
So Kyle, if you want to send me an email, I can introduce you to Andrew, or I can like forward it back.
Yeah, the one thing I would add to that as well, too, Dickie, is to Andrew's point, do they have a paid for service offering somewhere down the line? Because if you are actually handing over a customer who's used to paying free for something that is later going to be priced, that's going to be a hard conversation to have if they do not believe there's value in now having to pay for something that they were previously getting for free.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're not supposed to be, then tell them to stop it. Stop doing this support, because there's apparently a miss there somewhere.
Yeah, I think I'd rather get the specifics and send them to you. So
yeah.
Brian Burke asked, like, when should I hire a customer success engineer in my team? So he's a VP of CX and CS.
Day one. Carlos, I see you smiling. I know you have some strong opinions about this.
It depends what that means, right? So in my context, right, my first hire, who all of you guys know is Matt Harmon, right? He was my CS ops person, and he was more around wrangling data and helping me with automation and platform. In my world, a CS engineer is actually a technical bench that supports the CSMs, meaning that I don't expect my CSMs to be deep technical in the product. They're product specialists, but they're not product engineers. And the CSEs are typically folks that can jump on a call to support a CSM when it gets technical. And when they're not on the call with the customer, they're actually understanding the new features and functionality and helping write playbooks to go in and drive adoption, right? And so I think my answer to that is the first thing I always do as we spin up a new CS program. So within Aruba, we have different product lines. And so the way I look at it is I'm spinning up a new CS team or new program every time I'm introducing a new product line. First thing we do is, what's the charter, right? Is this CS team going to focus on driving adoption and retention, or upsell and cross-sell, right? Once you understand the dynamic of what you're trying to do, then that'll naturally tell you when the right time to introduce an engineer is. I also think it also depends on the complexity of the product. If you take a look at most companies out there, products that are very, very easy to use, the CSMs are usually focused on more upsell and expansion. They don't spend a whole lot of time on onboarding and retention, right? But if the product is difficult to use and it requires a hell of a lot more handholding, the CSMs are going to be a lot more focused on retention and onboarding and not so much on the other. So I would say in the latter example, you probably could use more of an engineer. In an example where the product is super easy to use, sounds like ControlUp's got that stuff down, I don't know that you would need a CS engineer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other question I would ask is, what problem are they expected to solve? I was actually considering hiring a CSE as well, too. And the problem that I was trying to solve is that there was a lot of post-sales issues that had not been vetted out in the pre-sale stage by the solution architects. So when we identified that gap, we just actually started requiring the professional services, pre-sales solution architects to ask more questions, ask better questions, start to gauge and scope for these areas. And we were actually able to identify and close that gap pretty quickly, so that we didn't need a CSA or CSE post-sales.
I had a similar situation. It wasn't an engineering issue, but I had a sales team that said, "Hey, your post-sales team spending too much time with our customers in trying to scope out engagements. they're taking 2 or 3 calls. I said, okay, then answer these 12 questions. And I will do is I will make sure that my team is spending no more than an hour on, one call with the customer. Right. So you bring up a really good point, Rigo, is what are you trying to solve for? Right? That's the first question you need to ask yourself.
Yeah. So it's kind of when somebody posts a question, we do not get the context and the details.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's, I think, one last, are we good? Should we ask?
Let's ask. We're good.
Well, we're here.
Christina, so this is, I think this question is a webinar by itself. So Christina is saying, what metrics should a team of 8 CSMs managing 4,200 customers care about for their performance? What metrics should I report to my boss, the CRO?
I read this one. I was like, the first metric is, why do you have 4,200 customers, being covered by 8 CSMs?
Maybe they are lower ARPA customers. Like
here's a perfect opportunity for Cast. You should be automating the heck out of everything that you do, right? and it should, because you're not a customer success manager with a 1/8 of a 4,200 customer book of business.
Look at Carlos. He's doing 16,000 with how many? Very few people. I forget the number.
Right, but you're heavily leveraging Cast.
My mind is racing to answer this question, right? Because it all comes down to segmentation. To Andrew's point, a CSM is not going to be effective across all those customers. So you have to segment the install base, figure out which customers actually deserve or actually can afford a CSM, and then figuring out what is it that the CSM needs to do. And again, it goes back to the product maturity. I mean, truthfully, my CSMs historically have focused quite a bit on onboarding activities, not really doing end-to-end life cycle, right? Mm-hmm. CSMs will engage customers end-to-end life cycle if it's like a very, very strategic account, but predominantly the CSMs are all about accelerating time to value. So in my case, my CSM profile are more onboarding specialists. As we're evolving and growing, we then start doing more end-to-end life cycle management. But what we ended up doing to also answer that is we created advanced service programs that actually fund the CSM. So we have the Swarm CSM model for general population, and customers who wish to have a dedicated CSM experience would buy an advanced service program where that's already embedded in there, right? Yeah. And so that's the way that we've been kind of positioning it is we really go and put rails on which segment and which customers the CSMs will go to. And then we have the Calendly and Cast.app engagements that can pull a CSM, what I call opportunistically, but they're not, there's no way that, my 8 CSMs can do lifecycle management across my entire install base. It's just not going to happen. But to answer the question, the metrics that I would say is when a CSM's engaged is what are the things that they're managing. So what I would say is, when a CSM's engaged, you would expect that you would have a better experience. So if you're tracking anything like CSAT, that would be customer effort score. Not so much the, would you recommend this type of thing, because that's not necessarily always going to be impacted by the effort of a CSM, right? CSM is not going to be able to really change NPS a whole lot, right? Because it's more than just the engagement. So that would be one. The other one is in an accounts where CSMs engage, what's the retention rate or expansion rate, right? Mm-hmm. And then the last thing is a CSM getting any reference customers, mm-hmm. right? I think as CSMs engage, they build relationships with customers, those customers would be more open to becoming reference customers.
Yeah. At the same point, like when you ask NPS score, or you ask the modern ways, like a 5-point scale, right? 1 to 5, and somebody says, 5, and then you process the data 4 weeks later, you ask them, can you become a referral? Things may have changed. So you want to ask them immediately, right? Like, do you want to be a reference versus us later? Yeah. So I think, there's a lot of talk about customer journey mapping being a living document versus as we want to continuously change ourselves, and I feel like, if it's a living document, what you're really doing is you're trying to insert yourself in the customer mapping, right? Yes, you can create a customer map. It looks more like a vendor map because you thought it, not the customer, and customer will use your product any way they so choose to do so, right? Like they would do step A, step B, and then do step F, and then go on vacation, come back and do step A, B, C again, things like that, right? I think that's what we planned on Yair's ControlUp, right? Like using like dripless campaigns. So this is the final question, and then anything that you want to say after that is great. What do you guys think of customer journey mapping and out of sequence use of customers using your product not the way you mapped it for some?
I think it's important. I mean, one of the approaches that we've taken is we've developed a process flow that the CSMs and everyone involved internally takes to support that customer. And then we've also done a customer facing journey map, and we've married the two to understand what are the touch points, what are the deliverables, where is there an opportunity to automate. And from that exercise, quite frankly, is where we started to really uncover a lot of the opportunities for CAS, Sticky. So I think you absolutely need to know what the customer experience is by having gone through what journeys do they go through, and it'll be pretty enlightening because it will uncover gaps or deficiencies or areas that you were not either privy to or aware of or just maybe neglected. But then to take that, do a gap analysis against your process flows. That will help you identify what automation, what tools, what touch points, what deliverables, what cadence do you need to marry against that customer journey. So I think it's key. And at the end of the day, if you do not understand the journey that your customers are going through, then it's probably highly likely that you don't understand the gaps, the pain points that you need to address and how to close those.
Thank you. And that last question was from Sylvia. I forgot.
I think it's a great point, Rigo. I think you customer journeys are important, and they're when you look at the customer journeys, there are these pretty maps that we share with our customers. But we actually developed a customer success engagement blueprint, which is a tool that we built in Google Sheets on purpose because it promotes collaboration, and it's a central place where everybody on the team can go in and see the tactical aspect of what we need to do in order to support that customer journey. And we built it with a playbook builder behind the scenes as well, so that you can go in and lay out your, all of the steps and all of the key systems and the diagram that the racing matrix that everybody needs to understand. So everybody understands who's doing what from the customer all the way down to, the back end operations team. And it's important to be thinking about both the customer journey and that tactical kind of behind the scenes, like you said, Rigo. How do you lay out your processes and make sure that everybody's on the same page, but also be constantly figuring out how do we evolve this, right? It's something that needs to constantly be reviewed and evolved.
Can I just say, actually, that's a fantastic point, Andrew. And actually, one of the challenges that we're dealing with right now, I like the fact that you've made that document collaborative, because the challenge that we face is there are different teams and resources upstream and downstream that will impact that customer journey, that customer lifecycle. 9 times out of 10, they're working on their initiatives, their process, their lifecycle in a silo. So giving them the opportunity to contribute to the shared document allows them the opportunity to see what any changes within their organization, what impact it'll have up and downstream as well too. And that's the challenge that we've been having, is everybody's kind of working in their own respective silos and forgetting or omitting the impact that it has up or downstream. So I think that's a great approach.
I dropped, by the way, a link, Dickie, into chat that you can share with everybody that is a downloadable copy of the customer success engagement blueprint. So
you have to give me access, but yes, I will do that. Oh, make a copy. Okay.
Yeah, all you gotta do is make a copy. You just copy that link and you can send it off to anybody.
I'll attach it into the digitized version of this, into the webcast.
Okay.
Cool. That's all I had. I mean, like, anything you guys want to say, final words or something, like, it could be anything. It could be personal, it could be related.
Yeah, so I just wanted to maybe add to the last conversation from the journey mapping perspective, right? What I would say is I think we have to be very specific about what we're talking about when it's journey mapping. I think we always assume that we're talking to customer success leaders and they just know what that means. But as you start going across the organization, I could tell you from an HPE perspective, I've seen 9 different versions of journey maps, right? And so, you have what I consider the customer experience journey maps, which, not to downplay them, but they're like the touchy-feely, here's how the customer felt, right? Like meet Jane, she's 28, has a master's degree and, loves to hike, and she's a network engineer and she has 2 kids. And so she's going to go through this, and this is the stuff that's important to her, right? We all have seen those. Those are more from a CX perspective. I would say customer journey mapping is what makes this team what it is today. and has really allowed us to evolve and actually spread across the entire company. But what we've now done is we renamed our journey maps. We call them customer experience enablement maps. And the reason for that is we take that experience that is supposed to be delivered, which is defined by product management and marketing and all these other people, and we say internally, who has to go and deliver that? What are all the different teams that have to come together to engage and deliver that? And we do a workshop and we walk through what we all need to do and how are we accountable internally to each other to make sure we can deliver that. And so the bands that cut across around that is, what is the data and telemetry we need to be able to track the customer's progression, right? How do we go in and what's the criteria to exit onboarding, right? How are we going to track customer health at each one of the phases, right? And then what are the different assets or tools that need to be created in order to deliver that? Is it internal templates for the CSM? Is it a cast.app? So when you take a look at our journey maps, what I always tell people is they're not intended to be read. They're actually logic that's handed over to the team that does CS automation to go in and build this, right? It's not, you don't go and sit and read this journey map because it's all this logic statement. It's basically programming for CS ops, right? I think, recently Tatango announced their conference was Canvas. That's really the way to look at it operationalized, right? But the actual inner workings of what all that stuff means is just this massive flow chart with all these references to all these third-party or exterior documents, right? So, and then the one thing I would say too is don't expect the CSMs to know the journey map off the top of their head, and also don't expect them to adhere to it, because at the end of the day, the CSMs are professionals, and they should have the ability to go and apply their own discretion based on their relationship to the customer to figure out what's the right play, right? The tool may be telling them you need to do this now, but the tool doesn't know everything that's going on, right? And so sometimes you run the risk of, chastising a CSM for not completing a task, but that's really not the play right now. And so I would always caution people about over automating and over scripting CSM engagement, because you do have to have that human element as a variable.
That's a great point, Carlos. Your process should be, in general, prescriptive yet flexible. You're
Right.
hiring these people, they're professionals. They should have some leeway. One thing, though, I wanted to add on to what Yair said about high touch, using automation with high touch. All of our casts are going to high touch customers.
Yeah.
What we would construe as high touch customers. We look at it as a compliment. Hey, by the way, on a monthly basis, we're going to let you know how your team is progressing, how your team is performing, because it's 100% all about consumption. That's how our customers get value. So we want to make sure that the leaders that have gone out and made the investment in training for their team are able to reap the benefits by having their team consume the content that they're expected to consume.
Amazing thoughts. Anyone, any other thoughts, final thoughts? Otherwise, we'll end this.
Yeah, I believe also that the customer journey is a dynamic progress, and it progress not just you have the basic milestones of onboarding and renewal and all that. That's the building blocks, but the customers are maturing, the technology is maturing, the CS technology maturing, but also the product is maturing all the time. Use cases, economics, every element can change the dynamics of your customers engaging with the product, with your team, and you need to factor it in. You need to listen to the customer. In digital, it's challenging, but you have to listen on how they engage with the program that you build, see what works and what not, and react. Always react. So if you think that you need to go to renewal, or you need to do these kinds of steps, or these are the matrix that is determined that they are in that milestone, you always need to check and recheck and just make sure that the flavors are always changing, and engagement is always changing, and needs are always changing. Especially I don't know if it's especially, let's take that especially, but in our system, systems and vendors are changing all the time, and this impacts our products as well. So there is the whole ecosystem in technology is advancing all the time. So you cannot keep a customer journey that was right 6 months ago, not necessarily is right now. So you have to always constant check yourself and make sure that you're on point with your customers, especially with digital.
I always said, like, drip-based campaigns don't work because, you set it up and things are changed. But I also learned from Carlos's comment, like, even for internal consumption, like, you should give the CSMs like leeway so they can improve and do the right thing or so. This concludes our webinar. I want to thank you a lot. I'll send you guys an email so I can send you guys something. Thank you so much for like joining us. We will do more of these customer webinars. I already have a list of other customers who asked me, like, why weren't we on this on this call? so I told them, like, this is what we just started. We did that like a year ago, but we'll keep doing this now. Thank you so much again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
folks.
you for having
Great
us.
conversation.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.